Welcome back to the Observable Unknown. There are things you can learn from a book. There are also things you can learn from explanation. And then there are things you can only learn by standing near someone who already knows how. Watch a skilled carpenter run a hand across a board. Watch a nurse enter a room and notice almost immediately that something isn't right. Watch a musician adjust the pressure of a finger. A chef judge heat without consulting a thermometer, or a therapist recognize the moment a silence has changed its meaning. Ask any of them exactly how they knew, and the answer may be incomplete, not because they're hiding anything, but because some knowledge doesn't live comfortably inside language. Michael Polanyi gave us one of the clearest ways to understand this. We know more than we can tell. A person can recognize a familiar face without being able to describe the exact arrangement of features that made recognition possible. We can ride a bicycle without calculating every shift of balance. We can hear when a sentence sounds wrong before we can explain the grammar. Polanyi called this tacit knowing. It's knowledge carried in attention, perception, timing, posture, judgment, and trained response. You possess it, but you may not be able to convert all of it into instructions. That creates a very specific problem. If the most important parts of competence can't be fully explained, how do they move from one person to another? Through participation, through apprenticeship. You stand beside the person, you watch, you try, you fail in a way they recognize. They correct something you didn't know you were doing, then you try again. This is how knowledge enters the body. We often treat education as the delivery of information. Someone knows, someone speaks, someone else receives. But information and competence are not the same thing. You can memorize the rules of conversation and still be unable to comfort a grieving person. You can read every manual on leadership and still not know what to do when a room turns against you. You can understand the theory of cooking and burn the onions. Competence appears when knowledge survives contact with reality. That's where Hubert Dreyfus becomes important. Working with his brother, Stuart Dreyfus, he described skill as something that changes character as experience accumulates. The novice begins with rules. Do this first, then do that. When this happens, follow this procedure. Rules matter because beginners can't yet see what matters most. Everything arrives with roughly equal weight. The novice sees details, the expert sees a situation. With practice, the learner begins recognizing recurring patterns. Certain details become more important than others. Context starts guiding action. Eventually, the skilled person may no longer experience themselves as selecting from a list of options. They respond, not carelessly, not irrationally. They respond from a form of perception shaped by thousands of earlier encounters. What looks like intuition is often compressed experience. The expert hasn't abandoned knowledge. Knowledge has become embodied. This is why an expert can sometimes perform beautifully and teach very badly. They've forgotten what it felt like not to know. They see the important thing so quickly that they can't remember the confusion surrounding it. A true teacher must do something harder than demonstrate mastery. They must temporarily return to the learner's blindness. They must remember which distinctions had to be built. They must notice the mistake beneath the visible mistake. And they must know when to intervene. Too early and the student becomes dependent. Too late and the student rehearses failure. Apprenticeship isn't passive imitation, it's guided exposure to consequence. You are allowed to approach the work before you can fully control it. You are given enough responsibility to learn, but not so much that your ignorance becomes catastrophe. The teacher adjusts the distance between safety and difficulty. That distance is where competence grows. A good apprentice doesn't merely copy the master's movements, they learn what the master is attending to. That distinction is sometimes much more important than most people realize. Two individuals can perform the same gesture for entirely different reasons. One is repeating the surface. The other understands the relationship between the gesture, the material, the movement, and the desired result. This is where apprenticeship separates itself from mimicry. Imitation reproduces form. Apprenticeship slowly reveals function. It also carries more than technique across generations. An apprentice learns what the craft considers sacred, what may be rushed, what must never be rushed, what counts as waste and what counts as care, how mistakes are handled and how responsibility is carried when the work fails. Every profession has an invisible moral education. A young physician learns not only how to interpret a symptom, but how senior physicians speak when certainty disappears. A young teacher learns not only how to present material, but whether struggling students are treated as burdens or as people still becoming. A child learns not only how to prepare a family recipe, but whose memory enters the room when it's served. Competence carries culture inside of it. This makes apprenticeship part of inheritance. Not genetic inheritance, not merely financial or social inheritance. It's the inheritance of practiced attention. Someone teaches you what to notice. Someone teaches you when to wait. Someone teaches you which error is recoverable and which one changes everything else. Because much of that knowledge is tacit, it can disappear when participation disappears. A written instruction may preserve the sequence, it may not preserve the sensibility. You can inherit the recipe and still lose the hand. Modern life often promises that everything can be reduced to a tutorial, a checklist, a certification, or a short YouTube video. Many things can, many more cannot. A tutorial can introduce the move. It can't supply the 1,000 encounters that teach you when the move belongs. A checklist can protect against omission. It can't always tell you which item matters most in this particular moment. Competence requires time near consequence. It requires feedback and humility. And it usually requires another person willing to let you witness the unfinished parts of mastery. That last part is almost never discussed. The apprentice must see the master hesitate, revise, discard an approach, admit uncertainty, recover from an error. If the teacher performs only perfection, the student learns performance rather than practice. They begin hiding confusion because the model appears never to have been confused. A generous teacher makes thinking visible, not every thought, not every private uncertainty, but enough of the process that the learner can see how judgment is formed. And the apprentice has responsibilities too, to remain teachable without becoming servile, to imitate without surrendering discernment, to respect experience without mistaking seniority for infallibility, to receive a tradition and still ask whether every part deserves continuation, because not everything passed down is wisdom. Some things are merely old. The finest apprentices eventually become capable of disobedience, not rebelliousness for its own sake, disciplined departure. They understand the craft well enough to know when fidelity to its purpose requires changing its method. That's how a tradition remains alive. It doesn't reproduce identical practitioners. It produces people capable of carrying the work into conditions their teachers never faced. The most important knowledge is difficult to explain and impossible to inherit without participation. You have to enter the room, you have to touch the material, you have to risk being corrected. You have to remain long enough for rules to become perception, and one day, perhaps without noticing when it happened, your hands will know something your mouth can't fully explain. That's competence, not information stored, not authority performed. A relationship between attention, experience, judgment, and action, passed from one life to another through proximity. If this interlude made you think of someone who taught you how to see, how to listen, or how to carry a difficult piece of work, make that known. Leave a rating or a review, not for recognition, for signal, so knowledge that can't survive through explanation alone may still find a living body willing to carry it forward. Until next time, remember, you don't become what you feel, you become what you return to, and what you return to returns as you.